Oh, no, the Kentucky Derby for its glamour, fancy hats, million-dollar bets, and legendary horses. But behind the luxury, there's a dark underbelly, doping backroom deals, sudden deaths, and shady money trails. Today we re-exposing the 10 biggest scandals that rocked the Kentucky Derby, and some of them may change how you see this iconic event forever. Stick around till number 1. It involves a world champion and an unsolved murder. 10 The bet that should have never counted. Everything seemed fine, till Dancer's Image, the thrilling winner of the 1968 Kentucky Derby, was shockingly disqualified just days after the race. The reason? The horse tested positive for phenylbutazone, anti-inflammatory drug used to treat joint pain. Legal in many racing states at the time, but strictly banned in Kentucky. What made it even more controversial was that Dancer's Image had a known history of leg issues, and his trainer admitted administering the drug, but claimed it had been stopped days before the race, well outside the supposed detection window. Still, the test results didn't lie, and Forward Pass, the runner-up, was declared the official winner. But that's not where the drama ends. The owner of Dancer's Image, Peter Fuller, fought the disqualification for years in court, arguing the horse was the target of political sabotage. Fuller, a known civil rights supporter who had previously donated prize money to Coretta Scott King, widow of Martin Luther King Jr., believed his political stance may have made him a target. It was the first time in Derby history that a winner was stripped of the title post-race, and the scandal exploded across national headlines. Lawsuits dragged on for nearly 5 years, and though Fuller ultimately lost the legal battle, the cloud of controversy never fully lifted. To this day, many still debate whether Dancer's Image was a victim of circumstance, a medical misstep, or something much darker. 9. The tragic collapse of 8 Bells. She finished second in one of the most competitive Kentucky Derby fields in years, but no one remembers the silver medal. What they remember is the horror that followed. Just seconds after crossing the finish line, 8 Bells, the only filly in the race, collapsed on the track with both front legs shattered. Veterinarians rushed in, but there was no saving her. She was euthanized on the dirt track in front of a stunned crowd of over 150,000 spectators and millions more watching live on TV. The image was haunting. A young, powerful filly who had just run the race of her life, now motionless. The public reaction was immediate and furious. Animal rights activists accused the horse racing industry of brutal exploitation, pushing horses to their limits for profit and prestige. The outrage sparked a nationwide debate. Was this an unavoidable tragedy, or a symptom of a system built on overbreeding, overtraining, and speed at any cost? Critics pointed to the fragile anatomy of thoroughbreds, selectively bred for speed over durability, and the dangers of racing such young horses under such extreme physical stress. Some even questioned whether a filly should have been entered into such a high-stakes race to begin with, reigniting long-standing concerns about gender, weight, and physical strain in racing. The backlash grew so intense that the New York Times, CNN, and even the Washington Post ran editorials questioning whether the sport had crossed a moral line. In the years since, some reforms had been introduced, but too many. 8 Bells became a symbol of everything wrong with the sport. A champion silenced not by defeat, but by a system that demanded too much. 8. Justify's doping controversy. Justify wasn't just a winner. He was a legend in the making. In 2018, he became the 13th horse in history to win the Triple Crown, dominating the Kentucky Derby, Preakness Stakes, and Belmont Stakes in breathtaking fashion. But just when the celebration began, came a bombshell revelation that shook the foundation of the sport. Months after the Derby, it was revealed that Justify had tested positive for scopolamine, a banned substance that can enhance performance by improving breathing and reducing fatigue. The alleged source? Contaminated feed, said officials, a common defense in doping cases, but one that raised more eyebrows than it settled. The positive test result came back weeks before the Kentucky Derby, during the Santa Anita Derby, a key race that qualified Justify for the Triple Crown. Technically, he shouldn't have been allowed to compete. But instead of disqualification or a public inquiry, the California Horse Racing Board quietly dropped the case, and the public was kept in the dark, till after Justify had already made history. It later emerged that the board's chairman had business ties to Justify's ownership group, and the entire investigation was handled behind closed doors, bypassing standard protocol. No suspension, no hearing, no disclosure. The fallout was explosive. Investigative reports by the New York Times and other major outlets accused racing officials of covering up a scandal to protect a billion-dollar moment. Critics argued that Justify's Triple Crown was tainted by favoritism, corruption, and secrecy, undermining the credibility of the entire sport. To this day, there's no official asterisk next to Justify's name. But in the eyes of many fans and insiders, the 2018 victory is remembered not just for glory, but for what it tried to bury. 7. The owner with a gambling problem, Ahmed Zayat, was once seen as a golden boy of horse racing. Owner of Pionarf the Nile and later American Pharaoh, it's a 2015 Triple Crown winner. Zayat's name was tied to some of the sport's biggest moments. But behind the trophies was a trail of lawsuits, debts, and unsettling questions. Throughout the late 1990s and 2000s, Zayat was repeatedly accused of massive gambling losses, some totaling millions of dollars owed to high-stakes bookmakers, offshore betting operations, and even organized gambling rings. Several lawsuits claimed he had borrowed huge sums, then failed to repay, even while his horses continued to generate headlines and prize money. In one particularly explosive case, Zayat was sued for $1.65 million by a man who claimed he acted as a middleman for Zayat's illegal sports bets. Zayat denied the charges, stating he never placed bets through him. But court records revealed bank transfers, emails, and patterns of transactions that painted a murky picture. Though he was never criminally charged, the volume and consistency of the accusations raised red flags across the racing world. And it wasn't just about gambling. Critics questioned how someone facing so many financial issues was still allowed to own and race horses at the sport. His highest levels, some whispered about preferential treatment, influence behind closed doors, and an industry that turns a blind eye when the money is big enough. What made it even more controversial? Zayat was also heavily invested in Zayat Stables. It's one of the most prominent ownership entities in the country, all while filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in 2020, listing tens of millions in unpaid debts. To this day, many in the racing world wonder, was Zayat just a high-rolling risk-taker? Or did he expose the uncomfortable truth that in horse racing, money doesn't follow the rules, it makes them? 6. The Great Horse Swap Conspiracy. Imagine this. It's the most prestigious race in the country, and someone secretly swaps out the real horse for a ringer, a faster, stronger, nearly identical twin, right before the gates fly open. It's the story behind one of the oldest and most persistent conspiracy theories in Kentucky. Derby history. The Phantom Switch of 1933. That year, a horse named Broker's Tip won the Derby in dramatic fashion, narrowly beating head play in a photo finish so chaotic that the jockeys literally fought each other down the stretch, grabbing reins and elbows flying. But that wasn't the only controversy. Soon after the race, whispers began to circulate. Was the horse that ran as Broker's Tip actually Broker's Tip at all? Some insiders claimed the real horse had been quietly replaced days before the Derby with a look-alike thoroughbred of superior ability, a secret training horse, used for private workouts and never registered in the betting books. No official investigation ever confirmed the switch, but the circumstances were suspicious. Broker's Tip had never won another race before or after the Derby. His victory stood out like a lightning bolt in a stormless sky. How does a horse with no track record of greatness suddenly win the biggest race in America and then disappear from relevance? Theories range from mistaken identity to intentional fraud, to a cover-up orchestrated by wealthy owners looking to manipulate bets and secure a fast fortune. Even today, nearly a century later, the 1933 Derby is remembered not just for its brawl at the finish line, but for the haunting possibility that the winner wasn't who he claimed to be. Because in horse racing, especially in the chaos of the early 20th century, records could be faked, identities blurred, and no one really knew what happened in the stables after dark. 5. The vanishing horses over the years. Dozens of Derby contenders and champions have simply vanished after their final races. Many were later found to have been shipped off to foreign slaughterhouses, despite promises of peaceful retirement. The public backlash led to reforms, but it exposed a cold reality behind the pageantry. 4. Did the mafia fix the Derby? For decades, whispers of mob involvement have followed the Derby. The FBI once investigated links between horse owners and organized crime figures involved in illegal betting operations. Nothing was officially proven, but the silence from insiders only fueled the rumors. 3. Medina Spirit's fall from glory, another champion stripped. Medina Spirit, trained by the legendary Bob Baffert, tested positive for betamethasone, a banned substance, on race day. Baffert was suspended. The horse lost the title. Once again, the Derby made headlines. For all the wrong reasons. 2. The rigged race of 1904, according to historical accounts. A group of gamblers in 1904 drugged one rival horse and bribed another jockey to throw the race. The horse Elwood won and became the first Derby winner owned by a woman, masking the scandal behind a feel-good story. But leaked letters and whispers from the Times suggest it may have been the first fixed Derby ever. 1. The murder that shocked the sport. Sonny's Halo won the 1983 Kentucky Derby. But months later, its breeder, David Foster, was found brutally murdered. The suspected motive? Massive gambling debts and alleged rigging of race results. The case was never solved. One of the Derby's most mysterious victories, followed by a chilling silence. The Kentucky Derby may look like glitz and tradition on the surface, but these scandals reveal a side of the sport that's anything but noble. When the stakes are this high and the money this big, the real race happens behind the scenes. If you're into shocking sports history and untold truths, like this video, subscribe and tell us in the comments which scandal surprised you the most. And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg.